Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to be talking about files, folders, and a little bit of management today and how to operate like a pro. When I started to put together this presentation, I found out there's an awful lot of information out there. So we're just going to be touching it today. Before we get started, I'll let you know that I am not an expert. This is just my collection of research, opinions, ideas. So let's get going here. Why do we need files? Well, a computer is made up sort of two parts, if you want to look at it. The brain, or the CPU, which processes information. And where is that information stored? It said you need the information to run the computer, but tell the computer what to do. It's stored in files throughout the computer. So you need files to be able to operate the computer, and you need files to be able to operate or to work on the programs that you have or generate data. And how do you store the files? Normally the files are stored in folders. And where the folders stored? Well, in the computer, you know, what are you going to do with them when you get them? So what to do with all these folders? So that's what we're going to be talking a little bit about today. And we're going to look at how to sort of organize. So we're going to be talking about folder organization. You can have folders within folders, and you can have folders among many different drives. File Explorer is your friend. You said, I think you probably heard this in the computer, File Explorer, Win Explorer. Basically, you get to it by clicking the little folder icon at the on the taskbar, or you go to the start menu, if you have a start menu, and click on computer, and it brings up the different folders and devices in your computer. As you can see, looking at this, this is a File Explorer representation from a Windows 7 machine. It has the favorites at the top. That's where you stick the files and folders and places that you use the most. Then it goes down to what they call libraries, which got dropped out in Windows 10. But it's got where you can get to the information. And then you go down to the computer, you can see at the bottom, you got the different drives. You know, this is another representation of File Explorer. This has got your favorites at the top, and you can see the different drives. Again, this is showing the different way it's set up. You got the desktop downloads, your favorites at the top of how to get to it. Okay, here is a Windows 10 File Explorer setup, which is on my new machine, which is on my laptop and desktop. So you can see how this is set up. They got a quick access, and you got some others, and you got the PC, and you got the different files and folders. So what we're going to be talking about today is, you know, how do you organize these? You've got different drives, and you can stick files and folders on different drives. The program or Windows by default usually sticks most stuff on the local drive or the C drive where the Windows Explorer is. I split things up and have my program and data on a separate hard drive, so that if I have to reinstall anything that I've got over there, and I don't have to back up the operating system each time, because the operating system tends to stay the same or get updated with Windows. So if you have to reinstall that, usually you have a disk and can reinstall it. The problem of what you have to replace is going to be the program and files. that you've established. And as you can see that I've got several different drives on mine that I store several different files and folders. The trick is remembering where they are. Okay, here's the quick access. That is taking over the favorites this time, and you can plug things up there so it's at the top, and you can get things quickly. But how do you get things there? How do you want to fold it? Okay. Remember, My Documents is a place that's been around for a long, long time. It's been around since, the early days. And the maneuvering and stuff, this is where most people store their documents. I use My Documents to store stuff temporarily, and then I move it to a different file or folder on a different drive once I finish with it but don't need it. If the program allows me to set a different directory for it, or a different folder for it off the drive, I do so. But some programs like to work out of My Documents, so we keep them there. So, but I recommend people not to use My Documents, or at least to use some sort of file organization. Again, I want to remind everybody, you can store your files anywhere on any of the hard drives. You've heard presentations on storing documents on the cloud, on different hard drives, different backups. So this is a place you can store it. You want to store it where it makes sense to you. And folder strategy. Okay. The one thing you need to do is you need to have a strategy of naming folders. I picked this out because most people are familiar with genealogy. So I'm using this as an example. So you're going to have a folder, say, with your father's family tree lines, and you call that your father's family line, and then you have a subfolder under that for each of the family members. And you do the same thing for your mother. So you have a strategy of where you're putting information so that you can easily find it. That's the key point, is you can file things, but if you file it in My Documents and don't have a strategy of how to file it, then you're never going to find it, or you're going to be searching all the time. There are several different file folder strategies out there, but you need to use one that you are comfortable with and you're familiar with. Now, how do you do this? Name files and folders so you know what they contain. Naming stuff My Files probably isn't going to tell you much, but if you put name file My old programs from 1915, from 2014, you probably remember it. And you also want to name the file something you can look at, even though you have the ability in Windows Explorer to be able to see what's in it. It's best to name it something so you know what it is. And files are searchable. So if you can't remember where you put it, but you remember what you named it, you can go searching for it. And one of the things is name them so you can find them. So you got to remember to name it something you can remember, or at least close to what you remember. One of the strategies is, I said, searching. You can search the PC. So one of the things you can do, this is up in the upper right-hand corner of your screen when you're in the File Explorer. I couldn't really put the whole screen in there because you couldn't see it, but it says search this PC. So you type in what you want to search. So I typed in something that I can remember. Let's say that I had some movies or some old pictures of when I saw Mama kissing Santa Claus. This is just something that popped in my mind. But you type in Mommy Kissing Santa Claus. Now that is fairly descriptive. And if you have folders, you don't remember exactly where you put it, but you can search for it. And that's, you type in the search bar. And here is the search tools that you hit search, and you can see you've done the results of this, and you hit search, and then you pop up with something, and it gives you some results. I came up with quite a few results. A lot of it is that when I typed it in a couple times. It went into the recent files. It went into a whole bunch of different stuff. But you can see the file folder once, and then you can also see that I've got a song on the computer that I saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus. But as you can see by putting in searching, and again, the search criteria works here, putting in asterisks and parentheses and stuff will help you find what you're looking for. And then the search will come up and tell you where it is, and you can move it, save it, or use it. Okay. Now you're in File Explorer. Now the different ways of looking and in the sorting. So what you want to do is, if you click at the top, now if you got the menu, you got a menu. This is the based on Windows 7, Windows 8, and Windows 10. You got a view, but there's still another sort up there. You can look and view. So you can see extra large ions all the way to details. I like having the details so you can see the File Explorer, what the program name is, and that type of stuff. But if you're sorting pictures and some other information, the icons will be a little bit better for you to find what you're looking for. As you can see, on the sort, you can sort by different columns, and you can add columns, you can size columns to fit, and you can group by. So you can group by tag. If you named your pictures, it's very easy to sort by tag. And what do I mean by sorting by columns? Okay, if you're looking at here, here's my OneDrive folder, but you can see the different colors. You can, if you click at the top, you can see that on the red over here is the name. You can click, you can sort by name. So you got folders first and then files, so it's alphabetically. You click it again, it's reverse alphabetically. One of the most common ways that I sort is by date and by type. You can go executables and date modified. So if you know you did something today, you click on date modified, you just have a smaller sort area to look at. And when you get down to the files, you can click on size, and if you added any other columns, you can sort on those columns and make it relatively easy to sort and find the files you're looking for. And again, if you named it something that you can and you have it in a folder and a subfolder, you have less files to sort through. And again, this works on any drive or any folder. You can click and go down deeper. So if you want to search or just sort by part in my APCUG folders, you can go down so you don't have to sort all of my documents or all of my folders. You can go down and dig a little bit looking for a file. Okay, and again, here's a different picture, and sometimes you can sort and view by, here is the small icon size. As you can see, the name in the file. And one of the good things about this is that it shows you it's an Excel spreadsheet or Word, and it makes it a little bit easier if you know what you're looking for to find and you got the names. And again, then you can sort by any method that you want to sort by. Again, we'll go back here. If you got pictures, you got the folders, but it shows you a little bit what's in it, and you can see, and it makes you a little bit easier to see and visualize. And where these come into play is if you're moving, you remember the snap to grid of being able to put one folder on one side and one on the other. In Windows 10, you can do 4, and moving files around. If you got them this size, it's really easy to move them around. But again, you have to name them and sort them so that you're not sorting through a whole bunch of different files. And again, if you click it and you got the right icon, you can find out here is images and printing, but you've got tags, and you can click on the image, and you can see the information at the bottom of the screen. Sometimes if you happen to click, this sometimes appears on the right as it appears on the bottom. It depends on how you got your computer set up. But this works great with movies, pictures, and it gives you a little bit of information about the file. So again, that's a different way of finding out what's in the file and when you did it. You've got the dates, you got the artist and that type of thing. Okay, one of the most powerful tools in the File Explorer is the right-clicking. Okay, I right-clicked on a file. And you can see the many, many different options you have based on the add-ons and everything that I've got. This is one way of dealing with it. You can open it, you can edit, you can get a new file, you can print it, you can scan it to make sure it's okay. One of the handy things is if you want to move it to Dropbox, or you can move it to iDrive. One of the things here that I use a lot is open with. You open it with the default program. But let's say you don't want to use the default program, you want to use something else. Just this time, open with will add on. I wish I could expand these out, but it's very difficult getting screenshots of this. But you can see the arrow, and you can open with any of the different programs that will open it on the file folder. Or at that time, you can change the association. You've been opening your media files in Windows Media Player, but now you want to use VLC. You can go back and you change the file association. Here you can share with. Here are the other drives. I have in this. I have WinRAR, which is what I use to archive zip files. And you can see that if it was a zip, here you could add it to a zip file. And if it was a zip file, these would give you the options to open it. I have WSFTP upload wizard. Yes?
There was a question somebody asked, are all of your
Yes,
slides
John.
now going to Windows 10?
Bits and pieces are.
Okay, thanks.
So sorry, that's good. Thank you. I missed that question. This file, this right-clicking works on any version, 7, 8, and 10. You all get different things. You can right-click on any version of Windows, and you're going to get a screen that's going to give you your options. I'm sorry. I'm bopping back and forth, but want to iterate the point that as far as I know, what I'm talking about works with Windows 7, Windows 8, 8.1, and Windows 10. Now, some of the locations and the setups may be a little different, but the tools always will work. As you can go down here, the cut and copy, create shortcut, rename, and down at the bottom are the properties. The properties you can click on and find out exactly about the properties of the file. It'll give you a chance to rename. Again, in Windows, remember that there are many different ways of doing things. But, if you want to do something with a file and you're not really sure how to do it, you right-click it, will give you all your choices. And it'd be the easiest, and it's the easiest for me to figure out of what to do, because I'll right-click, copy, right-click, cut, move files back and forth. And again, this works on any version of Windows. Folder options. What happens is, if you got tools, one of the things that, again, it depends on your version of where it is, and you got your toolbar. Because on 8 and 10, the file view edit, you have to open up or show. But again, one of the things you want to do is maybe change the options in your folder. The easiest way, if you don't know, if you can't get your toolbar down, to go to Tools and Folder Options, you can also go to Control Panel and go to Folder Options. And they're going to give you the options of what you can do with your folders. Okay, and here are the folder options. And you can see you got at the top, and I apologize, some of this is not the biggest, but you get tabs at the top of General, View, and Search. And you got, so you can show all folders, show all panes. Single click to open a file folder, double click to open a file folder. You can open each folder in the same window, you can open it in a new window. That is based on your preference. If you're not really sure what you want, I'd stick with the defaults. The next one is the View folder. This is where you can establish and deal different things. If you're not really sure what you're doing, again, I'd stick with the defaults. But what I recommend is, if you go down a little bit, that you show hidden files, folders, and drives. That's so you can find it and know what dot to click. But right under that is, second down, is hide extensions for known file types. I uncheck that because I like to show the extension of all file types, so I know what I'm doing. So you know if it's an executable or an XL, because looking at the graph, you're not really sure if it's in Windows 7 or XLX, or XLSX or XLS. So by having this, you know exactly what it is. So I recommend that. But that's the only one that I really change from the defaults. And again, you can set and show you how your folder views, it shows pictures, icons. But if you're not really into that, the best thing is to change and show, stick with the defaults. Okay. And I just said, I just want to remember, you could store your files and folders anywhere. So you could move them and copy them to wherever you want to. And I said, this is moving a little bit faster than I thought. You could store files on your home server or on an external hard drive. So then there is also the ability to store them on a network. And here's a copy of my network at one time. You can see I had a server and had different files on the server. Here are the different my other computers, and I could store files on the other computers. Again, you could, if you go back, remember we showed you can store files on that. You can store files on your external drives. This is a good way of, if you're backing up, or you just want to have your pictures on a different drive, that you can plug it in or you can keep it in. It depends on how many USB ports you've got as to whether you want to keep it plugged in all the time. I have a bunch of USB powered external drives. Then I've got a couple hard drives that I've repurposed to use as external hard drives, so that I've got several terabytes of storage on my main computer, and I do the same thing. And I store files there. And then if I'm going somewhere, I can take it with me, or I got all my movies on one drive and go from there. And so I really don't have. And as I said, Dick, you're right. I said if you got your USB 3, but you need a USB 3 external drive coming out of your computer to be able to pick up the extra speeds. But it does work a little bit faster. Things are getting faster. Computers are coming up, and it does work faster. Not quite as quick as on your computer, but that's a good way to expand the storage capability on your hard drive. And then if you've got a USB, then you can take it and plug it back into your Windows machine. I mean your netbook or whatever you're using. Another one, as I said, we've developed whole programs on how to use cloud storage. And a lot of the storage, you have just the file explorer just on your computer, and you can store it there just like anything else. So you've got extra storage. So that's one place. So this is not, and as I said, just a little joke about that this guy is using Wi-Fi all by himself. I guess I didn't quite talk as long as I thought I would. So we've got some questions, so I'll be more than happy to talk about questions or be any specifics of anything you want to know, because I want to save a little bit of time if anybody had any questions, or maybe specifically on how to move a file or copy a file or do something, that I could have some time. I can't really demonstrate, but I can walk you through it. And again, I want to iterate that the strategies of file folder strategies will work on the different machines, on different operating systems. And as I said, you got Bill James is going to be talking about Windows 10 a little bit later, and he's going to be able to talk a little bit about that. But things are getting a little bit neater and easy to use. But the same thing is you've got to be able to store your folders in a way that you can remember them. Okay. Yeah, okay. Ron, you want to know what's the difference between Windows 10 and Windows 7? The libraries are gone. It's basically the same. You've got quick access at the top, and then your PC is all lumped in together. But it all works the same. But it just looks a little different. They renamed it. They got rid of the libraries, and they renamed it. Okay, now I got people typing faster. A little bit faster. The file extension. Yeah, okay. A gentleman was saying that without the file extensions, that somebody had a malicious file in there, and it was an executable. And since executables aren't shown, if you got file extensions off, it's something you may click on and run a file. So you're going to be careful about that.
David, somebody asked if you have a preference on which cloud storage to use or you like to use.
Okay. Okay. To answer that question, then I'll go back to gentlemen talk about partitioning. Cloud storage. I have Dropbox, but unless you got a lot of friends, it's limited. I have about 6 or 7 cloud storage. And if you ever listen to my cloud storage presentation, we talk about that. I have Dropbox. I have OneDrive. I have Google Drive. I have an iSync drive. I have a thing called Media File. There's one called Sync. Each of them give you a little bit of different type of storage, and they're compatible. Most of them are compatible with my cell phone. Now, the only problem I have with so many drives is what I've got stored on each drive. Remembering what I've got. So sometimes I have to search. And that is where the naming of file folders really helps, so you can look and see what's going on. Another neat one is Box. It gives you file folders. I happen to get in on the thing, and I've got 50 gigabytes of storage on my Box. So I've got plenty of file storage everywhere. And I use it to share files. And as I said, it's got so much better of sharing files. I really stopped using my home server and do it. I got an iDrive now that automatically backs everything up. I got a free Wi-Fi 1 terabyte drive and 1 free year of 1 terabyte storage on the cloud for $69. So that was a good deal of getting a terabyte drive for $59. And then you got a terabyte of storage. So there's no way that I back up both my hard drive and my desktop to that. So I've got that backed up on the cloud. And I said, again, I do some backup with Acronis. And with all the storage I've got stuff backed up a couple different places, and I really don't need it. Now, again, someone was saying that you got different drives. Again, if you've got a terabyte hard drive, it's very reasonable to partition that. And again, there's another whole course just on partition strategy. Partition it so it's on the C drive. It's on the same drive, so it's still searchable very quick, but you've got different folders. And again, if something goes wrong with the operating system, you could restore it relatively quickly and still not have touched any other storage drives. And you make use of the drive. When you have something, a terabyte, you've got to search a whole drive with terabyte worth of information. It takes a while. And if you're doing it by hand, trying to figure out where I stored stuff. But if you store documents and store your pictures, because it said everybody wants to put the pictures on the C drive and buy pictures, but the more you get, the longer it takes to move them. So I let it store there, then I move them over to another drive where I organize them so that I can have them, because when you stick stuff in, it goes there, and sometimes it doesn't go in any particular order or the order that you want. So then I take them from there and move them over and organize them. Okay. Well, as I said, there's a gentleman talking about the cloud's a threat and can be targeted. Anytime you're on the internet, you can be targeted, and all I can do is recommend safe computing. Now, the one thing is, I said, I would not recommend using the cloud for my confidential taxes. I store them on my computer and back them up on a flash drive or a hard drive that's removable. So anything that that's questionable, I can put on the file. But as I said, what you're going to store on the cloud, people can find anywhere by doing searching, because you happen to, in all the other databases, that what you've got. So as long as you've got a good antivirus program, a good malware program, I that you should be relatively safe. The online storages don't make any money if they keep getting compromised. Uh, you see more of the credit cards and everything. People are going out of where they can get information, and so I would recommend having your personal information stored locally, but your pictures, your files, that type of stuff, could doing it doesn't hurt. And the question has, if you haven't stored any files on the drive C, creating a problem since no longer the default, you just change the default. You can make things the default. The only thing that gets really complicated is trying to move my documents to a different folder. That can create some problems when people are looking. But I have, for downloads, you can make downloads folder. But when I store stuff, usually when you download it from something, it asks you where you want to store it. Instead of just saving it, I save it as. You can go to a different folder. You just got to remember where you're doing it. And Jay talked somewhat about encryption. There are several sites out there that are encrypted, which means you know the password, but they don't, so no one can get into it but you. So you really got to be careful, but yeah. So it depends on how safe you want to be. If you got, pictures you want to save, you got a fire, you could move them off site. Flash drives. And go from there. I'm trying to read some of these questions. Oh, installing a program? No. Every time I install a program, it asks where you want to store it, and I go in and change the C to a D, and take out the parentheses x86, so it goes to my D drive on D drive program files and the program, and I've not had any sense whatsoever. Alan wants to know if you can use your documents as your Dropbox folder. Yeah, but it gets a little difficult to set it up. Plus, most people end up with more than 2 gigabytes in the Dropbox folder and only have 2 gigabytes on the cloud. So if you've got quite a few gigabytes on the cloud for your Dropbox, it'd work. I just move stuff to my Dropbox folder, and I don't store much in my documents folder. I move everything out of there. So the only thing I save is what goes in there by default. Some programs store some other files in there by default. I move them. But I have not had any major problems or any hiccups by storing stuff on the D drive or E drive. Because once you set the defaults in the system on a program, it knows where to go. And so once you reinstall it, it knows where to go. And that's the joy of the different folders and how to set things up. Yeah. Well, they say the one strand is from the defaults. I disagree, because it said the app data is staged. If you do a backup, full backup on the app data, it's going to tell you exactly where it goes. When you have to do a reinstall on the Windows system, and you got to do a clean reinstall, you have to reinstall the programs. And actually, if you have them, then you're just installing over what's changed. And you got to reinstall them anyway, so whether you install them in the C or D makes no difference. And once I have had a backup with my programs being on the D drive. and I had a backup, and I reinstalled everything and did a complete backup on the C drive, and everything came back up hunky dory. I didn't have any problems. It's just that you have to make sure that your strategy of when you're doing your backup works. As I said, I don't do that much of a backup on my operating system unless I'm going to be upgrading or something like that. I just back up my personal files, my documents, my pictures, and that type of thing so that I have them, because I always have the ability to recreate the operating system and add the programs. Yeah. And just so, again, write down or make sure you understand exactly what you're doing. And that's the reason I ask you to do a strategy that you can remember, because I've got several different strategies. What works for me may not work for you, because you got to remember it. And I can tell you, and most of you probably understand, that the older we get, sometimes we forget where we put things. And that's the reason that I asked that you fold and fold the things so that you could remember them. So that I got things under APCUG and my local club CICUG, and then I go back a little bit more detail on the file folders underneath, so I can remember where I stored stuff, and I don't have to look through so many files. And I add dates, I add times. So if you name your files, it's easier to do it. Do you ever find the... Okay, I'm not sure what an SPPED is.
That speed.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Okay. The speed of installing in the program is no. I have not seen any difference whatsoever. The speed would be minimal. And again, what I do is my D drive is usually on the same partition as my main drive. So it's on the same partition. It's not moving over to a different drive. And I would qualify that if you're going to do a D drive, I would make sure it's on the same partition, because that would keep the speed up a little bit on what you're doing. But I haven't seen these speed issues. And with the computers nowadays, you're not going to see the speed. The speed's going to be more in loading the graphics and where the program is and where you got storage is going to take more time than actually bringing up the program. The program will come up fast, and then it has to go out and grab the data. So, yeah. So, what I recommend is, it said that if you, most drives, external drives, are running, as you said, unless you get a 7254 USB 3. I would say that right now that it's going to move faster, and you may see a little bit faster on some of these things, but some of the speeds are going to be minimal of what you're doing, because it depends on the size of the file. If it's an executable file, it's going to load rather quickly. What takes time is taking the data that's in there. If you've got a graphic intensive program, or I've got a program with all my videos, DVDs, and it's got pictures and everything. You can see the program pops up relatively quickly, and then a couple of seconds later, the pictures and everything will show up. So that depends. It takes a little bit longer to load the heavier graphics files, and that's the way it is anything that you're going to have. Yeah, as I said, someone likes the SSDs, and I know a lot of people, we even talked about that on speed, is that you put your operating system on an SSD and then move the program files and everything else over to another drive, and that seems to work very well. I've got quite a few people that have got the SSD in the computer. I got a friend that got an SSD and got a 1 terabyte other drive that's connected. I mean, Huey Poplock, I know, is working on a Pi type of device, and he's got a relatively big SSD drive, but he's got a 1 terabyte. So you have to be careful what you're storing because you can't store but so much on the SSD. But again, stuff that goes to the SSD, you can move over to the other so the program goes back. So, and okay, well, as I said, there are a lot of disks. And as I said, if you're installing, make sure you know what you're doing. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, people talking about the SSDs and how many you can rewrite. Uh, so I'm not really sure. And you got different strategies that my point is that the computer is probably going to outlast the SSD is probably going to outlast the computer. So of what you can recover, what you can do. But as the technology grows better. So as I said, SSDs are still in the infancy. Uh, and everything could fail at some time. So that's the reason you back up. And if you back up an SSD, you could restore it. Recovering a file may be a tad bit difficult, but that's the reason you do a backup. What's going on? Okay, so you can check the SSDs. I mean, the hard drive's only going to last so much, and going back and upgrading. So I think right now that any other questions? We got about 10 minutes.
Actually, we probably need to give some people some break, and so if we
Yeah,
got more questions.
yeah. As I said, I would ask people to make sure to read some of the chat because some people are making some different comments, and everybody's got a little different opinion uh, about how to do it, and it depends on what works for you. Again, make sure that if you don't go jumping in if you don't know what you're doing because you got to make sure everything's set up right. But as I said, your local computer club, that's what they're there for, and I'm sure that they have somebody that's done it and done it before and can help you.
I'd like to thank David for this very interesting presentation on files. I know that when I work with people, the one thing that's the biggest problem is people lose files and they have no idea where they are. So having a strategy, like he said, is key. So David, thank you very much, and hopefully